Radio, your number one online Islamic talk station.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to MP Radio. I'm honored and blessed to have my friend Tom from Oxford University. I'm very excited. I think our show is going to be exciting as well. Be with us, and inshallah you will enjoy it. And make sure your kids, if they're around you, get them around and to hear a great young man. He is a young man, actually. Tom, would you like to introduce yourself to our viewers?
Thank you, Ishaque. I'd love to. My name's Tom Daggett. I currently work at St Paul's Cathedral, but have been involved in grassroots politics in East London for the past 5 years. And immediately before that, I did indeed go to Oxford University and studied music, actually. And I was the first person in my family to go to university. My parents didn't go. So I'd be privileged to talk about that with you a little bit. And before that, I went to school in Blackburn, to a state school in Blackburn, and grew up in Burnley. So I've sort of had a gradual migration south and now find myself firmly rooted in London and find it absolutely impossible to leave because I love this place and the people and the culture that it brings. So hopefully we can talk about some of these things
Fantastic,
in the next period of time. But it's really good to be here with you, and thank you to MP Radio for having us on. It's very good to be here.
I'm glad you made it too. Honestly, how hard work did you have to do to go to Oxford University? This is one of the biggest universities in the world. Yeah. It's amazing, honestly.
It is a big thing. I was the only person in my year to go to Oxford. I sort of fell into it by accident, I suppose. What happened was I looked at a prospectus for the place and fell in love with the architecture and the history of it, and was desperate to go, actually. And
so what kind of grades did you have to go to?
Well, I mean, I did quite well in GCSEs, so usually you would do sort of A's and A stars, I think, and then I did 4 subjects at A level, and did work very hard, actually. The thing I did was work most hard in my first year in sixth form, and that put me in a position where I was able to apply. And I don't know, I must have the gift of the gab or something, Ishaque, but managed to talk my interviewers and my tutor into letting me go to study there. But it wasn't easy, and takes a lot of personal motivation and the ability to see into the future, actually, to an extent, because you have to be able to understand that it's better to put the hard work in now and then you reap the benefits. And that was what that was really about. What advice would you give
to young people who done really, really... I know a person, she done 11 A stars,
right,
in GCSE and stuff like that.
Wow.
People like them, what kind of advice would you give to the Muslim youth, especially because they are a bit diverted probably in different ways? What advice would you give to them?
Well, I went to a school in Blackburn, and we had a large number of Muslim students, many of whom went on to go to university, and we were a state school in Blackburn. And actually, I think the important thing is to understand that you can genuinely achieve anything you want to if you put the work in. You don't have to remain in East London. You can move around the country and then come back. You will make new friends. You need to broaden your horizons. These are all good things. But ultimately, actually, there are no barriers at all in going to a place like Oxford. There's a lot of misconceptions about the university, that it's for the privileged or that it's for a certain type of person, but it's just not true.
Oh, really? Actually, I was going to ask you that. I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, it's it's just not true. So these are myths which are bandied around all too often. And actually, there's a great richness in diversity and culture in a place like Oxford University and Cambridge and others. So I would say to Muslim youth who are doing well in their studies, you should absolutely aim for the top, because you're in a privileged position and you can become a leader. I think of leadership in lots of ways. Showing an example to those younger is one way. Looking at the issues in your community and being plugged in is another. And these help to make you a rounded person. So it's not necessarily just about business leadership or political leadership, but taking every opportunity you can as a young person in your neighbourhood with the people that you know to build yourself ultimately is going to make you in a much stronger position in life, and you will find that you're able to enjoy opportunities like going to top universities and making real change for yourself. So I would really big up anybody who's sort of flirting with the idea and say, go for it.
Well done. I was going to ask you that, 25 prime ministers from that university, and you're part of that. Have you met any of them? Have you had a chance to meet them, or what's their stories behind?
Well, I mean, I haven't met any prime ministers, I have to say.
At the moment, the cabinet is full of
it is
Oxford University.
It is, that's right.
The country itself, that the main top levels are from Oxford University.
That's
London
right.
Mayor from Oxford University.
That's right, indeed.
How about Tony Blair? Is he from Oxford University?
Tony Blair, I don't think he was from Oxford. Maybe Durham or something like that. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, you don't know who you're meeting when you're in university, and you arguably will be meeting the people who are the future leaders, which is quite awesome, actually. If you think about it, the people that you socialise with and who are the same age are the next generation of leaders. So although I'm quite a bit younger than David Cameron, I have to say, Ishaque, so I haven't actually met him in studies. But yeah, it's a privilege to be part of that story in our national heritage, that there have been so many leaders and that there are. That's a real blessing, actually.
There are some stakeholders. I mean, there are some from the Arabs. There's the kings.
Definitely.
They're from Oxford University. We had a Pakistan. Benazir Bhutto from Oxford University.
Well, actually, I have met.
Is Imran Khan also
Bilawal
from Oxford
Bhutto. I have met him.
Okay.
So Benazir Bhutto's son, who went to Christchurch, I met him through the Oxford Union, which is a debating society.
How is he? What's he like? Is he a proper
he's
next generation leader?
I gather that he's moving places politically. Yeah, he was very well connected in Oxford. He had lots of friends. He knew how to talk to people. And he was also very down to earth. That's another thing that you notice about people in these positions of leadership, that often they're just another human being.
Can I just say something in Bangla, just for 2 minutes, if you don't mind?
Yes, of course.
বাইনু বোনেরা আপনাদের সামনে আপনার আমাদের যে ভাই আপনার ইজ ফ্রম অক্সফোর্ড ইউনিভার্সিটি, যে ইউনিভার্সিটিটাকে আপনার পৃথিবীর মধ্যে ওয়ান অফ দ্য বেস্ট। এই জায়গা থেকে আমাদের এই দেশে উই হ্যাড আই এম সেইং ইন ইংলিশ অ্যাগেন, আমাদের এই দেশে আপনার 25 জন আপনার প্রাইম মিনিস্টার এই এলাকা থেকে এই ইউনিভার্সিটি থেকে আসছে। আমাদের বাচ্চাদেরকে আমরা উৎসাহ করার জন্য আই থিঙ্ক আপনারা এই শোটা যদি দেখান বারে বারে, আপনারা ইউটিউবে লাইভ দেখতে পারতেছেন, অথবা পরেও আপনারা দেখতে পাবেন আপনার, প্লিজ এনকারেজ ইউর কিডস টু hear this and get them to, you mobilize them. And honestly, this is the best place to go. They're having 11 A-stars, 8 A-stars, amazing kids, They can go back home and do the big stuff. So আমি আপনার অনুরোধ করবো আপনারা বাচ্চাদেরকে আপনারা মাঝে মধ্যে নিয়ে আপনার এইরকম বড় বড় ইউনিভার্সিটিগুলো দেখাও আপনার, সো দে উইল গ্রো, তাদের মধ্যে একটা ড্রিম আইব আপনার মনের মধ্যে আর কি আপনার, সো দে ক্যান appreciate the way we're showing them the way. Can I come local?
Absolutely, please.
Brilliant. I know we have a crisis in the whole world now regarding refugee crisis in Syria, Iraq, and Libya, and lots of the people they want to come to in this country. And I have to give thanks to Germany. They take in lots of people. It's amazing. God bless these guys. Honestly. We're trying to have some here. It's the policy, whoever makes the policy, they decides. We respect their policies. But they want to bring here probably 20,000 refugees in 5 years' time.
5 years, yeah.
And people are saying, is that the right word or right number to use? What's your opinion? Because a few weeks ago we saw, and I'm so happy to see our Christian leaders and the Muslim leaders and going out and say, no, we need more people coming here. This is a humanitarian thing. This is really suffering people there. As a human, we need to give them a hand.
Absolutely.
So what would you say?
Well, I mean, my opinion, the first thing to say is that we have a duty of care to everybody, and particularly those who find that they have come to our country. So I've been involved in London Citizens and Citizens UK and Telco for a number of years. And I remember when I first joined that movement, there was a big campaign about the asylum of children and the detention of children who were asylum seekers. And citizens did a lot of work to improve the conditions and to make it illegal for children to be held essentially in captivity in a sort of prison-like environment. So that's one thing that I would say, that those who have already come to this country, and those 20,000 over the next 5 years, need to be treated in an appropriate way. And it's been inspiring to see the response of faith leaders and faith communities in particular. Only this morning there was a news article that the Archbishop of Canterbury is willing to open his home to refugee families, and the Pope has done the same. And then at the local level you see a lot of churches sending aid out and raising money for the Syrian refugee camps and for those who are held in different countries. So actually
Can I just ask you something here, because you talked about leaders of the faith group. In 20th century, do you think the faith leaders are capable of facing the challenge of this century? Do you think we are capable of doing that?
It takes a coordinated response, and it means that different faith groups have to work together.
Not just Christian, I'm talking about Muslims, everybody together.
Absolutely.
Do you think are capable of facing the challenge?
I don't think we're necessarily capable on our own, and that's the point, that actually together we are more powerful. So what is also inspiring about these humanitarian crises, in terms of the way that we respond, is to see Christian and Muslim leaders coming together, and the leaders of the different faiths, and recognising that as human beings we have a problem that we need to address. We are called by God to address problems, and we are called by God to put our resources into helping others and to try and build a peaceful world, and one in which humans can live in dignity. So yes, we are certainly capable of addressing the big world issues as people of faith.
So you are the next generation of leaders in faith group. You will be, you're from Oxford, I'm sure you will. What would be your vision seeing in next line of leaders? What would you want to see?
I'd want to
across
see...
the faith.
Across the faiths. Well, I mean, I would like to see more politics being done by churches and mosques and synagogues at the local level. So I would like to see a growth in the model of Telco, which is the East London Communities Organisation, where people unite around their similarities. They unite around their communities, around street lighting, around food, around poverty, low wages, and to see faith communities taking a faithful response. That's one vision that I would like to see. Another one is a much more national level, and that is about understanding and breaking down barriers and increasing communication. Because you look at the front page of the Daily Mail or any other publication, and week in, week out, there are stories slamming people of faith. There are stories about extremism. There are stories about all sorts of things, about migrants, about benefit seekers, all this sort of thing. It's all a negative press. But actually, if you look at people's human relationships, there's a lot of love there. So I would like to see, in the next generation or so, an increase in awareness and a broadening of minds. And that means education. So that means taking these issues into schools a lot more and encouraging debate. It means an increase in local leadership, so young people becoming involved in their communities and seeing how institutions are good for flourishing communities, being part of a mosque, being part of a church, being part of a youth group, things like that. So a broadening of horizons. Get out of the in front of the computer screen, get out of there, talk to your neighbours, make friends, explore the world, and take an interest in the world issues, actually. As
a British citizens, us, if someone put finger at us saying, look, you guys, started in the, like in Syria, I think, you guys are behind the problem. In those days, about a few years ago, Americans and the Saudi Arabians, and we did help those guys wanted to get rid of Assad. So we are part of the problem then. If we don't find a solution, if people put finger at us, I think we can't say, look, they are naive. And this is a human problem. If we don't care of the humans or our own kind, who would help them?
Absolutely.
So would they be wrong, say we take some blame for it?
Well, I mean, geopolitics is a really complex thing. and it's difficult to track cause and effect with these things, Assad's regime and everything, and military intervention that we've seen over the past decades. It's a very complex thing, and people on the left or the right have different views. Military intervention, should you do that, shouldn't you? I think the important point is that the world is not as it should be, and that we need to think more creatively about how to bring the world into what it should be, so what it shouldn't be to what it should be or can be. In terms of blame, that's quite complicated, and it's not necessarily one country. People tend to view the West or the East, or I don't think that's very helpful, because within that there are so many different views and so many political and religious beliefs. I think it can be quite dangerous to talk about blame. But I think the important thing is to notice that we have a duty of care to people who are displaced by these regimes and displaced by wars. And ultimately, we have a duty of care to try and make the world a more peaceful place. And that possibly means not pursuing military intervention in cases, but that's a very difficult question.
I think blind game doesn't help. It's not the solution, because they probably were there, but people who's killing now is the Muslim against Muslims, the people who are living there, they're doing the damage.
Absolutely.
So if they want to learn something, it's no good looking outside. You've got to do it within yourself. You've got to change there. I think that's the only solution we can do. And against the extremes are there, the extremists are doing this damaging. I think we all have to come together.
Absolutely.
If there is I think there is a saying, if there is a injustice somewhere, it affects the justice everywhere. That's very true.
Absolutely. One of the troubling things for me is that this seems to be a war of ideas as much as anything. So the messages that ISIS put out, they manage to penetrate people's consciousness and the way they think about people. The way that people think about the Muslim community, and that's troubling, because that's fueled by the press, and they want to create this tension within our own countries, and that's we must guard against that, and we must build bridges wherever we can and not be forced apart. That's very, very important. So ideology is a big thing, and again that goes back to the idea of education and the need to broaden young people's minds and show them an alternative way of modelling society.
Honestly, recently, a few months ago, we had a Ramadan, and I had a chance to invite my neighbors, our friends. I had a chance to meet one of the famous rabbi from a Jewish faith. The story was telling me regarding those days. He said there was a golden days when the Muslims and Jewish, and they were living together. When they used to go shopping, they used to leave the kids with the Muslim family. Yeah. When the Muslims used to go, they used to leave the kids with the Jewish family. That's how close they were. Absolutely. So we all had a golden time, and he showed if we go back, that's the only way you can be happy. That's the only way. We believe in one God and the one world. Why can't we have peace together?
Absolutely. The famous pictures that keep coming out are the ones of Muslim soldiers in the Second World War and the First World War who fought alongside those from this country. They're quite powerful images, which often go unnoticed. And as you say, this sort of more accepting period is it also goes unnoticed. The example I always use actually is medieval Spain, before the Reconquest, when you had Christians and Muslims and Jews living together, mostly in the south.
I think that would be very interesting to our viewers. If you could take time and explain, it would be brilliant.
I would love to, yeah. So essentially what happened was that there was an influx of Arabian culture, and you had mosques built across Spain, but you also had Jews coming, building synagogues, and you had an indigenous population of Christians. And now it wasn't always quite fine and dandy. There were a lot of military tensions, but alongside that, actually, it was a time of great cultural flourishing. So it was a time of enlightenment when people talked about philosophy, they talked about music, they talked about poetry, they shared stories, if you look at the court of someone like, there was a king who lived in the 13th century called Alfonso X. And I actually wrote my dissertation on him in Oxford about Christian and Muslim relations as depicted in a set of songs. So the set of songs sets poetry which is about tensions between Christians and Muslims. But if you look at the artwork, it is covered in Arabian influence. The music meters were inspired by Arabic modes and meters. So, and in his court, he had a lot of courtiers who were Muslim, who were musicians actually, and who wrote poetry for him. So his court was a court where different cultures came together, and different ideas were shared, and science came over from the East. So a lot of medical science, actually. And this came about because people were willing to work together, ultimately. And then, obviously, the Reconquest was a bit more troublesome. And we have seen a growing tension in Spain between Christians and Muslims over the 20th century. But if you look back quite a long way, there was a very interesting time of cultural sharing, which I think should be an inspiration to us all. And it's, again, something that you tend not to learn about in history at school. And I was really keen to explore that in my dissertation in Oxford, which a dissertation is a long piece of writing that you do towards your final degree. And you look at the subjects in close detail. So I was really keen to look at Christian-Muslim relationships in music, and I'm a musician now at St Paul's Cathedral.
You have to sing. You have to sing.
Oh, I'm not sure I can sing.
You said music, and then I can't.
Well, I'll tell you what I do.
I can't let you off.
I have a children's choir in Hackney, which I would love to talk about a little bit, because I actually took them to Cambridge University last November, almost a year ago, to go to King's College, Cambridge, which is one of the most, I don't know if you know of King's College, Cambridge, it's the one with a really long chapel. And at Christmas time on BBC, there's always a very famous service which is viewed by millions of people across the world. And I took the children in my choir to Cambridge University because I wanted to show them what they could achieve. And they absolutely loved it. And there's one boy called Gary who told me, Tom, I'm going to work hard in high school and I'm going to go to Cambridge. And I love that. You know, a kid from Hackney saying that. So I'm all for opening horizons and expanding.
So do you write songs or do you make music? So what do you do?
I have written songs. I prefer to perform, and actually my big thing is getting other people to sing. So rather than me singing, I should probably get you to sing.
Is there any window here?
I might just let you off that one.
So what kind of song do you write? I mean, say a few lines. Just say you're not as a song, as a poet.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I tend to write a different kind of music, so not with words. But I can tell you about a song that I was involved in, which was written by a priest, actually, up in Hackney. Now, this is a really interesting... You'll like this. It's a really interesting case study. In his church hall in St Paul's, West Hackney, are a number of different charities that use the hall throughout the week. And he wanted to find a way of bringing them all together and to form a stronger community. So he decided to write a song and form a choir. And I went and led the choir and got everybody singing. So we're talking about, you know, people up to their 80s, right down to children, and all different backgrounds. I mean, you'd have a lawyer next to a homeless man singing in this choir, and that's what it was about, is bringing the most diverse people together. So that song was called I'm Holding Out a Helping Hand to You, and then the rest of the chorus is we could make it through, holding on together. You and I could touch the stars and shine if you just put your helping hand in mine. So it's about, again, building bridges. This is my
Next
whole
time
thing.
You come here, I want to see you in the guitar.
Oh, listen, I'm a pianist actually,
and your hair going up like rock and roll. And there you go.
Do I look like a rock musician to you? I don't think so.
I'm just exciting our viewers. That's amazing, actually. I think you were talking about Spain when you're trying to show like the Christianity and Muslim and the music together. I mean, I never had that before. Honestly, this is something amazing.
It's really interesting, and it was a great point of interest in the early 20th century amongst Spanish scholars, so people who wrote about this stuff and historians, and then it sort of got lost a little bit around various military conflicts in Spain.
Can I ask you something? I mean, it's something I want to know too. How come? I mean, this is a country used to be a lot of Muslims there, or Muslim ruled it there, but you won't hardly find any Muslims in that country at all now. I mean, very rare. Would you have any clips of history behind or anything you want to share?
Yes, I mean there were a lot of
because from our side there are stories or myth or anything. This happened, but from your side, I'd love to hear it. So
yeah, a lot of it in Spain was about Algeria and the tensions there. So that, I mean, there were political reasons in the 20th century why there was this kind of narrative of them and us, which is very unhelpful. And again, it's the sort of thing that we're seeing with, refugees, them, and us over here. And, the importance of removing the two and putting them apart, which is a shame because Spain's true history actually was much more colourful and much more integrated. I mean, you can actually, I challenge you to go and have a look at Wikipedia and just have a look at the whole subject and read about, Spain and its relation to Muslim community, because it's actually really interesting and it has a lot of lessons for us.
We're finding it difficult, honestly. Myself, I'm talking about difficult to put the view across and look. We all not bad. No, all Muslims are bad. The way they, trying to brush everybody with the same brush, saying if ISIS is bad, you guys are bad. It's this happening there. Everyday papers, anywhere you go, it's just like that. Our news is, look, we're not bad. We're just like you guys. You have some bad guys. We have some bad guys. Honestly, that's norm.
Absolutely, completely the norm.
But if we all peace-loving people come together, we can share our pain and we can move on.
It's really interesting because you very kindly invited me to an iftar in Poplar, which was one of the most moving things that I can remember, actually, because I remember sitting next to the head teacher of an Islamic school. And that gentleman who, he's wonderful. And he actually said at the end of the conversation, Tom, when you get married, I would like to come to your wedding. Wow. Which I thought was really moving. And, he was asking me about my family and, I was telling him about my sister and all sorts of things like that. And he said, and it surprised me in the context of this conversation where we were talking about how close we actually were and how we had so many things in common. And he said, well, the sad thing for me is that when I walk down the street, people, especially young white people, look at me in a way which suggests that they're afraid of me. And I found that really upsetting, actually, that a man who had opened up and is such a gentle and God-loving man, was walking down the street and being made to feel that, and that's a real problem. And I'm not sure that there's a quick fix to that. But what we must carry on doing is shouting about the things which bring us together, and that's why I love being part of organisations like Citizens UK. And seeing all of the jobs fairs that went on around the Olympics. I was part of a campaign to get local people Olympic jobs, and we actually ran a jobs fair in the East London Mosque, in the London Muslim Centre. And that was brilliant because you could see the whole community coming together, and there's no fear, there's no barriers, there's no walls. It's people doing good together, and I think that's very strong. And the more that we can tell each other about these things, the better.
Brilliant. We just have 2 minutes. Brothers and sisters, I know you guys are interested too. I'm so interested. I'm not asking him anything. I want to hear from him everything, actually. I think we should all, look at our neighbours. We should play a part. We need to show our goodness. You can't. If you hide your goodness, it's no good.
Absolutely.
You need to show it. And we need to be proud of ourselves. If you don't respect yourself or have confidence to love yourself, then no one's going to love you, no one's going to respect you. There are lovely people in this country. Yes, we have some crazy ones like we have as well.
Yeah.
But there are lovely, lovely people in the world. We just need to reach them. That's the only thing. I think we will call it a day today. If there is a chance I was going to show my friend Tom the exhibition in Islamic Mosque. If you could record it as well, that would be great for the video. Brothers, sisters, if you said anything you didn't like, don't worry about it. There's a next time always. We do our best to how to get communities together. And he is a witness. You could see that he feels for the humanity. This is missing. If we don't care for somebody now, when it comes my turn, how will I feel? And we're very grateful to those people, places like Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, even Saudi Arabia. They're taking 100,000 people there. They already spend £700,000 in Jordan just to looking after because they have lots of them. In Turkey, nearly 1.5 million people there already. In Lebanon too. These countries are quite not establishment. There are people complaining why isn't they are taking their shares. Yes, even in Europe we are trying to take the shares. You can't blame them if they don't take us in, because media shows this guy can be terrorist. So we need to show our goodness, inshallah. Slowly thing will change, and pray for everybody. Would you like to say the last word for our viewers?
I would, only to say it's been a real privilege to be with you, and to encourage especially the young people to be inspired by these encouraging words, and the need to really look outwards. And the other thing is to be a good role model and to be a good neighbour at all times, because we certainly need it in this country at the moment. But it's a privilege to talk about these issues with you, Ishaque. So thank you, and thank you to MP Radio for having us on.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.